There's a new knitting TV show that has hit UK screens. I'm going to talk about it. If you're a knitter and you like the Great British Bake Off, the Great British Sewing Bee, the Great Pottery Throwdown, there is a TV show that could just be for you. The first episode aired on Sunday, which for me was yesterday, at 8 p.m. on Channel 4, and I was going to record this immediately afterwards, but by that point in the day, I had no voice. As you can hear, I have caught a cold from my child. This TV show is hosted by Tom Daley. He is not a judge and is judged by Di Gilbin and Sheila Greenwell. Tom Daley is not a judge, which a lot of people were worried that he would be, because he receives quite a lot of criticism on his knitting style and how he's kind of put on a pedestal in the knitting world and all of that. I'm not going to go into that now because that is not what this video is about. This TV show is on for 8 weeks. There are going to be 16 challenges. There's a solo challenge every week and then a team challenge every week, which I found to be interesting. I originally quite liked the idea of a team challenge, everyone coming together to make something. I think that's very cool. But at the same time, you do not get a team challenge on Bake Off or Sewing Bee or anything. So what's the purpose? Unless there's a clear thing that everyone does separately, what's the purpose? There are an awful lot of knitting puns in this episode. Maybe too much. I love the yarn barn. That was very fun. When people are kicked out, they are cast off. I've seen a few people say that they wish it was crochet away, like sachet away, like RuPaul's Drag Race. I love seeing all the knitwear and crochet wear that everyone is wearing. I think it's amazing seeing all these different patterns and all of these different things. I do wish that the social media team of Game of Wool asked people what they were wearing for each episode and like posted what the patterns were, because I think that would just be great and could be very inspirational for all the crafters who are knitting, because let's be honest, who else is going to be knitting or who else is going to be watching a TV show about knitting other than people who knit and crochet? I watched Great British Sewing Bee. I do not sew. I watched a Great British Bake Off, and I mean, I do bake, but not half as often as I want to, partly because I live with a baker, so it feels like a waste of time. That's one of my problems. Problems isn't the word. I'm not entirely sure how many series of this show there are going to be, because yes, knitting is becoming more prolific and more people are knitting now, which I absolutely love. I've just said the same thing twice. But I don't know if this show appeals to anyone except for knitters. I feel like a show like this, it needs to have a bit more scope. The Great Pottery Throwdown is enjoyed by people other than potters. And I think it could work if you have the right combination of host and judges. Now, the judges are very successful and in their knitting career, and I love that. I think that's amazing. They are a little bit awkward, and Tom Daley is a little bit awkward, and I am fully thinking it's episode 1. They might just be finding their feet. That is absolutely fine. Noel Fielding was awkward on the first few episodes of Bake Off that he was on because he was finding his feet. But the thing is, with Sewing Bee, Bake Off and Pottery Throwdown, none of the hosts do the thing that they're hosting. Claudia Winkleman was the original host of Sewing Bee. She didn't sew. And now it's had a slew of comedians, which is amazing. The people on Bake Off, the various hosts on Bake Off, also comedians or actual presenters of some form, and that's great. And Great Pottery Throwdown, Siobhan's not a potter. It works though. It works. Tom Daley doesn't seem impressed by anything that any of these knitters are doing because he can do them. But I feel like on the other shows like that of different crafts, the hosts are a bit more interested and hype up the contestants a little bit more because they're actually amazed at what these people can do. Whereas Tom Daley's like, yeah, I can do that. I don't know. It just comes, I don't know. And it could just be because he's awkward and he's just finding his feet with it, and that's absolutely fine. But I'm intrigued to know if it improves. The first solo challenge is a Fair Isle tank top. Tank top in the UK and in the US are two different things. In the US, I believe it is a sweater vest. And it is a modern spin on Fair Isle, so something that tells your story. Now, they only have 12 hours to knit this, which is an obscenely short amount of time. This means they're all using chunky yarn. Chunky yarn. They were allowed to design the motifs beforehand, which I think is going to be very important and very key, because there's no way that they would have been able to have time to design and knit it, because that is actually bananas. So they all had time to design it beforehand, which I think was really, really good. I do feel bad for the people that generally don't use chunky yarn. Holger, who is one of the contestants, shared his disdain for chunky yarn throughout the whole episode, which I absolutely loved and thought was absolutely hilarious. But 12 hours of knitting. I'm curious to know over how many days this episode was filmed, because they had 12 hours for the first challenge and then 10 hours for the second challenge. So it must have been filmed over 3 or 4 days, because otherwise I don't know how many of them have hands. With that said, I really hope it's not chunky yarn all series. If you're not used to using chunky needles and chunky yarn, I feel like you knit slower with them, because I generally use quite small needles, and the thickest yarn I have in my stash at the moment, I'm pretty sure is Aran weight. I have a lot of 4-ply and a lot of DK weight yarn. So using massive needles, my hands aren't used to that. I would not be able to go at any sort of speed. One contestant is attempting steeking. Gordon, he's a brave lad. I love to see it. I've never steeked anything myself. I'm far too scared to do it, which is so stupid. But they made it out to be this big scary thing, and oh my goodness, it's so terrifying. And I wish they hadn't done that. It's a very traditional technique. On Bake Off in the early days, I guess it was different because it was on the BBC, so they weren't adverts, so they had that extra time. And on Sewing Bee now, once again, there's no adverts. I can't remember if they do this on Pottery Throwdown, but they go off and they talk about either the garments that people are making, a little bit of history to do with the sewing pattern, for example, or they used to talk about like the history of the Victoria sponge, or whatever. I think it would be really interesting to chat to the judges about what steeking is, and have knit a swatch out of, sticky Shetland wool, as they kept talking about, and have them steek it, and just to be like, this is what steeking is. Because I think that would be really, really interesting, and be like, it's not this big scary thing that we're making it out to be, because it's a traditional technique that is used by many, many people. I think that would be better, and would be more interesting for knitters as well, who maybe haven't ever heard of steeking before, because it's not necessarily a hugely commonly used technique. It is revealed at the end of the first challenge that actually they're not going to be judged on a mannequin. Tom Daley is going to be putting them on. Why? Did any of these garments have a chance to be steamed? We all know that blocking helps knitting and crochet, so especially knitting and colour work in particular, helps so much to settle out those even stitches. The critiques, it could just be how it was edited, but the critiques felt very vague and nothing useful. I feel like that they only mentioned Isaac's ladder floats for the Swiss darning or duplicate stitch because he'd mentioned it earlier on, and it just, I don't know. I feel like they could have talked about the motifs that people used a bit more, commented if people had uneven stitching, but maybe they didn't do, or uneven stitches. Maybe they didn't do that because the garment isn't blocked. And they could have at least looked at the floats, but they didn't. I feel like they would have got more into it if they had been looking at it on a mannequin instead of on Tom Daley. Dipti, her garment didn't even fit over Tom's head. She willingly admitted that she hasn't knit many garments before, and she's never done colour work before. Keep that in mind. We're on to the team challenge. 10 hours to make a sofa cover. There are two teams of 5, I think, and they have to make a fitted cover for this sofa. Yes. Why a sofa? Why not an armchair? Why not make it at least somewhat achievable? One team managed it beautiful, a lovely gradient, a few cables, simple yet effective, as often goes with these challenges in these shows. Simple yet effective seems to work quite well. The other team bit off more than they can chew and didn't manage to get it done. I think it's partly due to the chunky yarn and also just the sheer size of what they needed to do. Give them an armchair, come on. Something else I forgot to say about that very first challenge. Fair Isle in week 1, that's bananas. That is bananas. So yes, because they have 10 hours to do the sofa cover, it does mean more chunky yarn, more massive needles, and it's just lacked variety in this episode. It was all sort of one note, and I kind of hated it a little bit. Not the show itself, but the fact it was all chunky yarn. Plus, I would have such hand cramp. It would be horrendous. One team managed to finish what they were doing before the other team did, so they went over and helped them. I love that. I love when that happens on a show. It tends to happen on British shows quite a lot. I don't know if it's because, as a general rule, a lot of these shows you don't actually win money. It's just to do it. And so it's not just like every man for himself. It is like, cool, we will do this. We will help you. So I really like that. I thought that was really good. I thought that was really nice to see that, yes, whilst it's a competition, it isn't like every man for himself. So then it came down to who is the big knitter of the week and who is cast off. Why is it big knitter of the week? Why isn't it star knitter of the week? That's what I want to know. I was curious as to why they have done a team project, because why would you do it? It's not like I don't know, what's the purpose? Because you got judged as a team. They weren't like, this person came up with this bit, this person did this strip, this person did this bit. So unless that wasn't shown on camera, because it was only technically 45 minutes because of all the adverts. And also, why did we get an advert for cremation in the middle of it? Are they thinking only old people are going to be watching this? An interesting choice, Channel 4. But I don't think anyone was really judged on the team project. So honestly, what was the purpose of it? I don't understand. So the big knitter of the week was Elsa. She did make an absolutely beautiful tank top. It was so lovely with a really interesting neck, and she put a little port hole in the back, and it was just beautiful to see. She got a little badge of a little woolly sheep because she was big knitter. And unfortunately, the person who was cast off was Gordon. I have some thoughts on this. This show is to find Britain's best knitter. So they have cast off someone who, because their steeking was messy, because of the time constraints of the project. Sure, maybe he shouldn't have tried steeking, but clearly means that he has the knowledge to do steeking, as opposed to the other person who was technically in the bottom two. Not that they ever announce that there's a bottom two, but there is always a bottom two, and they're kind of talking between them. Dipti has never done Fair Isle before, which is a technique she hadn't done before, and the garment didn't even fit over Tom's head. I feel like that's quite a big thing. The garment didn't even go on. How can you kick someone off the show who has enough knowledge in their abilities of Fair Isle and such to attempt steeking, and then kick someone off who hasn't made a garment that fits? That's just my thoughts on the matter. So yeah, Dipti is still in the running to become Britain's best knitter, even though she doesn't make garments and she hasn't done Fair Isle before, and she made a garment that didn't fit. The other thing that I feel a bit icky about with this show is that immediately this morning I wake up and go on Instagram, because of course I do, because I need to get a life. Rowan is out there posting about how they have kits to make some of the vests. Why does everything have to turn into a way for businesses to make money? It's so frustrating. I mean, I partly get it, sure, of course. But you don't see, I don't know, Waitrose coming out with buy this kit to make this sandwich loaf. I don't know. You don't see, maybe you do, and I'm not on fabric Instagram, but you don't see fabric companies being like, have a bundle of this fabric and this pattern, blah blah blah. It just feels a bit icky that Rowan are like, hey, we're gonna come out with kits so you can make it, and oh, you're a bigger size, we'll charge you more. Fat tax where? Yeah, we're including that. Don't be ridiculous. So yeah, I found that really interesting. I will keep watching it. I did enjoy it as an overall thing. It's apparently based on like a Danish knitting show. I haven't watched any of that because I didn't even know it existed. I also don't speak Danish. I don't know if that's a surprising fact. But I would be curious to look into how that show works, because apparently it's got 3 seasons of it. This is just something that I read very quickly on Reddit this morning, so I don't know how true that is. But yeah, apparently they've got 3 seasons of it, so they had a lot of things to pull from. I'm interested to see why they didn't take more inspiration from that. Someone on my Discord, was it my Discord? Or was it on TikTok? Someone on TikTok, I think, mentioned that there is this Danish knitting show and that they knit a lot of the garment at home and then they finished it on the show, which I think might be a better way of doing it, because you would get more variety in yarns and stuff. You'd be like, cool, you've got X amount of hours to knit this, but you do it at home and then you finish it in. I think that would be good. Then people could choose what yarn they wanted, what needles they wanted, and it would just be a little bit more flexible. But hey, that is my general thoughts of the Game of Wool. I think it's a bad name for a show, but I did enjoy it. As much of I'm criticising it quite a lot. I did enjoy it, and I loved seeing all the knitwear. I loved seeing all the creative designs that people were coming up with. I didn't feel particularly inspired coming away from it, like I do with Bake Off. Makes me want to bake. Sewing Bee made me want to buy a sewing machine. Did I use it? No. I've given it to my sister. She uses it, but I didn't come away from this being like, I want to knit this thing. So yeah. Hopefully, as the series goes on, it will evolve and improve. If you would like a video like this every single week, please let me know. I enjoyed making notes and doing this kind of video. I think it's really fun. I've not really done this kind of thing before, so let me know what you think. And have you watched the show? Are you going to watch the show? If you're international, I don't know where you can watch it, but I imagine you could use a VPN. I don't know. And yeah, I will keep watching it though, because I love that knitting is on mainstream telly. I think that's amazing. And it was on Channel 4 at 8 p.m. on a Sunday, which I think is amazing. So yeah, I will keep watching it. I will keep giving it my view. And yeah, let me know your thoughts on it. Thanks so much for watching. I do post a video here every single week. I will be posting an extra video on Friday. So if you'd like to subscribe, that would be delightful. And yeah, I will catch you all very soon in my next video. Bye. Hopefully next time I'll be less full of cold. Oh my God.